Come to the edge, she said, but they were afraid. Come to the edge, but they were still afraid. Come to the edge. So they came, and she pushed them, and they flew. Storytelling can feel as though you're coming to an edge, and then you plunge and you start speaking and you're falling through the air. It's a free fall experience. And then you land. And this is what it's going to feel like for the speakers today, who'll be standing here, flying through the air as they speak. You're committed once you start.
When I first began to learn about the art of storytelling, I thought my story was quite simple. I was one of the first ever female recruits to undergo Special Forces training in the UK, and one of only 4 females to reach the final stages of Channel 4's SAS Who Dares Wins. But what I've learnt is that this was merely a stepping stone to the real story of rediscovering my power. And the more I explore that story and share it, the more I realise that we all have huge untapped potential within us.
Sometimes those untold stories can cause us more harm than good. We've all had embarrassing or awkward moments that we'd rather not tell anybody about, but what I want to try and convince you of tonight is just how powerful it can be when we tell those stories, and just how detrimental it can be when we don't. Maybe if I'd shared that story earlier and not clung on to it for decades, I wondered if my adult life might have been slightly different. Who knows? But whatever the past, my hope for today in sharing this story finally with you in this room is that I might encourage you too to tell any of your untold stories.
Just wonderful. It's been an incredible session of stories. Thank you so much, Lou, and thank you to both of you, Christina and Vicky, for being so courageous and sharing those untold stories. And when I wrote my book, Your Leadership Story, I wrote it with the idea that it would be a kind of 6-month process. But anyway, we ran the accelerator program, and these brave souls went along and did each part of it. And so the parts of it were, part 1 was about the power of your story. So really understanding the power of your story, the potential of your story, and also the stories around you that influence you, which can often be the people that you might be hearing about in the media or books that you're reading, stories that you just hear from day to day, and the people that influence you. As Jim Rohn said, we are the average of the 6 people that we spend the most time with. And that's been shown to be the average in terms of how much we earn, in how fit we are, in our morals, our values. I can see some people looking around them, sort of taking some averages there. So it's about claiming our power and the opportunities we have to use our story. And then the second stage is then about finding and discovering our own stories that we have and the message that we want to tell. And for general stories, there are often sort of what I call a key message that we might have that's associated with that story. But throughout our life, I believe that we are often giving the same message whenever we're really passionate about something. There's a kind of message that we want to convey. When we're helping people or inspiring people or feeling really excited about something, there's often a kind of a theme that emerges around something that's really important to us or core to us. This might change and evolve over time, or it might express itself itself in different ways, like the facets of a diamond. But there's this sort of diamond message that we have, and you can see these messages emerging through the 2 stories we've heard so far, about beauty and truth and empowerment and claiming back our control. And then part 3, we move on to crafting and writing the story, and we look at the 5 essential elements that stories need to contain in order to be, that it's been shown that they're more likely to be believed in a court of law if they cover off these 5 essential elements. And throughout the ages, these essential elements come up again in myths, in films, in all kinds of stories. But then stage 4 is about delivery. So that's about how we deliver and stagecraft, as well as immersive storytelling techniques. And this would be about sort of really being there in the moment and the experience of the continuous present when you're telling a story. You're there again, seeing what you saw and hearing what you heard and feeling what you felt. And as you convey that again to your audience or to the people that you're telling a story to, they start to see and feel and hear those things as well. So rather than kind of stand apart from it and talk about that experience, you can be there again, and it just becomes much more alive. Final part before tonight's performance was about living a greater story. So sometimes the stories we tell, and perhaps not our own, stories we may have inherited from our parents or our family or our society, and we might continue to have or it may be from somewhere else, it may be an inner narrative that's not serving us anymore. It's outdated or it undermines us. And so it's about aspiring with our story to tell a greater story about who we can be and what we can become, and this unlimited potential that we have to be more than we are now. And that's what it's to sort of live a more visionary story for ourselves. And then at the end of it wouldn't be the same if we didn't have this performance, because if we just sort of did these 5 stages of the course, everyone would kind of go away and go, oh yeah, I'll use that at some point. Yeah, I'll write a story about that. But by having this performance, it's really held people's feet to the fire. There's not much more to say about the untold stories, other than just to say if any of these stories have sort of touched you or triggered a sense in you that you would perhaps love to share some of your untold stories or explore them a little bit, I can recommend it. Because it is extraordinarily transformative. And if you do have stories to tell, please do share them, because it might just be that the words you have to share are exactly the words that someone else needs to hear. And when you share your story, you change people. But it's not just the people you change. The person who changes most is yourself when you share your story.